this video, we're going to cover the basics of constraints. And let's get started. We'll start with a new project. We'll stick with metric, and we'll go ahead and create it. Okay, so let's get started the traditional way with a 2D sketch. And I like to start on this plane here, which is basically the build plate on a 3D printer. And if you can't see, there's like little initials down here, tells you which one it is. You can also expand the origin, and when you click on it, it would be the XZ plane. I saw it flash there. Oh, and if you put your mouse on them, you can see it's highlighted. We are on the XZ plane. And here's the other thing I want to point out to you. The orientation is sideways. It's tipped on 90 degrees to the right. That's an issue. And where it's an issue is what we're going to cover in this episode is constraints. Constraints are ways of joining lines and points and objects together, tying them together. They don't even have to touch and they're still constrained to each other. So let's cover constraints, and let's talk about this top issue, namely that it's laying on its side. Let's start with a couple lines. We'll do something very simple. We'll draw a diagonal line. Okay, and then I'm going to hit escape to stop it from drawing more. Now, one of the simplest constraints is this one, known as the horizontal constraint. And you can see what it does. It takes your line, and when you click on it, it makes it horizontal. Okay, so let's do that. Click on horizontal constraint. We'll click on our line, and oh boy, that looks like a vertical constraint to me. Well, what happened? Well, it's because this is oriented on its side. If I go over to this arrow and turn it right side up, there, that looks horizontal. Now, if you want to get rid of a constraint, you just basically, well, first of all, we're still in a constraint mode. We can click more lines if we wanted to, because it's stuck in constraint mode, horizontal constraint mode. I'm going to escape a couple times. That turns it off, turns all of these off. Now, if I go to this line and right click on it, I can see the constraint came up. If I hit delete, it's going to delete the line because that's what's highlighted here. So I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to just click on it, left click, and now I see my horizontal constraint came up. I'm going to right click on the horizontal constraint, and here's one thing I've noticed. I have a delete, but my line is highlighted too. And if I hit delete, it's going to delete all of it. Watch. There. Now I'm going to do Control Z to undo that deletion. I'm going to click on the line again, and this time, well, I'm going to click on it. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to right click again and kind of monkey around here. Actually, what I'll do is, well, this will introduce us to this right here. This is a show constraints command, and if I click on it and I highlight everything I want to see constrained, I can see a constraint for a center line to the middle. I can see this constraint right here, and if I just left click on it and then right click on it, I have a delete command right here. Let's try and delete it. There you go. So the secret a lot of times is to left click on it, then right click on it. And sometimes you get an OK choice that allows you to also reconstrain it. Speaking of reconstraining, and of course they're all visible because I revealed them, we can do a vertical constraint, which takes a line and makes it vertical, as you can see. So we'll click on vertical constraint. We'll choose this line, and you can kind of see, do you see that faint dotted red line going up and down? Now I've got it pretty close to the middle. Watch this. I click on it, and it put it pretty close to where that dotted line was. Not exact, but pretty close. It basically took that part of the line and constrained it and turned it on that spot, but then it moved over in conjunction, so it's centered. So again, here's my constraint, and I'll just OK it. And I right click on it. Now when you just see these small number of choices, that is good to let you delete just the constraint. Okay, I'm going to right click on this one. I can get rid of that one too. Fantastic. And I'll delete that center dot. Wonderful. Okay, so far we've covered horizontal constraint, vertical constraint, and show constraints. Okay, let's talk about this one. This is coincident constraint. A coincident constraint basically works with curves or lines or arcs or kind of anything you can sketch or draw and ties them together. So let's do that. We have our line here. Let's draw another line. Oh, somewhere like that. Okay, non-constrained. So I'll click on it and I'll hit escape, so I'm done drawing on it. And let's say I want the end of this line right here, which if you just touch a line, the whole thing turns red. But if you touch just the end of it, you can get a little red dot. And if you put your mouse here and leave it long enough, you get a menu of a bunch of choices. Same thing with this one. So I want that red dot and this red dot to constrain themselves together. Let's do that. We'll join them together. That would be the coincident constraint. I'll click on it. It's turned on. We'll go to the end of this line, click on it. We'll go to the end of this line, click on it, and there they are. They are joined together. And Control Z, of course, undoes it. So I'll just Control Z. We'll do an undo. Now, I'll hit escape so everything's clear. And I can move this line down now. Let's do this kind of a coincident constraint. We'll click on this one. I'll click the end of this line here, and I'll just click somewhere on this line here. There, it went straight across and joined it somewhere on that line. And I can see by the graphic symbol that the coincident constraint is still turned on. So to turn it off, hit escape. There, I just hit it several times. Now that they're constrained there, I can move this around. See, I can move it side to side, lengthen it, shorten it, slide it up and down, but it is remaining constrained at the same angle and attached to this line. Speaking of this line, let's see if we can move this line. I can. I can lengthen it, shorten it, reverse it. That's interesting. There you go. Whoop, there we go. So that's what constraint is. Coincident constraint. Constrained right to that. And the coincident constraint looks like this. Oddly enough, that graphic looks a lot like that graphic. That is not a coincidence. That's bad. Okay, so let's see if we can get rid of it. I'll left click it, then I'll right click it, and I'll hit the delete. Perfect. I should be able to separate them. I can. They're no longer constrained. So that's what we're going to kind of do. We're going to constrain them, then we're going to unconstrain them, just so you can follow along and work with this fully. The next one, let's do this one. Parallel constraint. Okay, so say you've got a bunch of lines that you want them to be parallel to each other. For instance, I'm going to zoom out just a little, and I'm going to make this one crooked as well. Not on a 90 degree to anything in this drafting environment. And I want these to be parallel to each other. So I want this one and this one to be parallel. So we'll click on the parallel constraint. What do they call that? It is parallel constraint. Good. So I'll click on the larger one first. I'll click on the smaller one second. And there. They are parallel. Now I'm going to hit escape, get out of the command. Can I move this around? Yes. I can move this around, but notice it always stays parallel. Same with this one. These are handy tools. Okay, so now I'll just hit escape, get out of everything. If I get rid of this parallel, notice this one highlights, it lights up too. So I'm going to right click on this parallel. I'm going to hit delete, parallel constraint. And it got rid of both. That's what we want. Can I move it around? Yes. I can slide it around. I can change the angle. There, I got to be right on it. Now I'm left clicking and holding. I can lengthen it, shorten it. Completely free. No longer parallel. This one is next. Tangent. Notice it involves a circle and a line. Well, I'll click on this one, hit delete, so we can get rid of that line. I could have right-clicked and said delete, but I just hit the delete button because that works too. So if we take a circle and we draw one right there, okay? And we go over to the tangent constraint, and I click on it. Notice that it doesn't let me choose the center, but it lets me choose the curve. So I'll click on the curve, and then I'll click on a line. And when I click on it, it joined it right tight against the line. Now I'm going to escape to get out of that command. I can still see the icon for tangent constraint is still visible. If I click and hold move this line, I can move this line and the circle goes with it. I can even move it away. Look at that. So they're still constrained, but it doesn't. This is interesting. It doesn't actually have to touch it. It can be off a little bit. Okay? But it is still constrained to it, even though they're not touching. Now, what if I click and move this circle? Well, that circle is adjusting its size because it is constrained to the line, and the line is not moving. The only thing that can move is the diameter of the circle. If I click and hold the circle button, same thing. It's the only thing that can move because they are constrained right here. Okay, now let's do something interesting. We'll shrink this down a little bit. What if we dimension that circle to a fixed size? So I will click here, and I'll just say make it 8 millimeters. Okay, that circle is now 8 millimeters, and I'm going to hit escape to get out of everything. What happens if I try to move the circle now? It won't move. It won't resize, and it won't move because it's constrained. Now I believe I can still move that line, and I can. But that circle is no longer freely adjustable because it is constrained to a dimension. That's a constraint as well. Constraints are like joins and lock-ins. Okay? So that is locked into that diameter, and it is constrained or locked into touching that line. That's a way to think of constraint. It's kind of like being locked to something. It's kind of a locking mechanism. Now, of course, I can always delete that dimension. Make sure I hit escape, get out of everything. And if I click on it one time, my left mouse button, hit the delete button, I can now resize it again. Okay? And I can right click on that. Now I've got the big menu again, so that's not what I want. Now I clicked away, way over here, so nothing's highlighted. I just touch it without touching the line, and I can now delete it. They are now free. Okay, that is tangent. Going up the choice here, collinear constraint causes two or more line segments or ellipses too, to lie in the same line. Two or more line segments. Okay, so let's play with that. We'll get rid of the circle, hit delete. So we have a line here, and we'll draw a line here. And why not? Let's draw a line over here. Escape, we're out. Okay, so if I take this command right here, and I click on this line, and I click on this big line, look what it did. It lined them up and kind of made them touch each other. So I'm going to escape. If I touch it, they're laid over top of each other. Notice when I put the mouse on this larger line, the top part of it's still kind of that other color. Likewise, if I touch that one, that's the shorter line, that's the larger line. So if I take and focus the larger line, click and hold and move it out, I can adjust it away so they're not touching each other. I can even shorten this up a little bit so you can see it better. But here's what it did. They are in the same angle and they are lined up to the end of each other. That is what collinear constraint does. Okay, so I'm going to delete this one here. Get rid of the line. And I'm going to bring this one up here. I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. And I'll bring this one down a little bit. So they're roughly straight. And instead of using a coincident constraint, we'll do the collinear constraint, like we were talking about. I'll take and click on that line, click on that line, there. They are collinear now. Okay? Oh, I have to escape so I can play with it. There we go. And to break that, well, click away, right click. That seems to work really well. If I just right click without clicking, oh, there I deleted it. To get it so that that short menu comes up, just start clicking away after you've hit escape, click out in a neutral area. Then when you right click on the constraint, you can just get rid of the constraint. Otherwise, I'm deleting the whole line this way. When you see that big menu, it's going to kill the line too. Okay, so that was collinear constraint. What's next? Perpendicular. Right angles. Perpendicular. If I draw a lousy square, and it's a lousy square, and I join it so that it becomes a solid square, I'm going to escape to get out of the line draw. I want to turn these into 90-degree angles. So how to do that is I'll take this perpendicular constraint, I'll click on it, and I'll say from this line to this line here, make it perpendicular, 90 degrees. Same thing with this line and this line. They are both now 90 degrees, even though this thing just went lopsided. Let's do this one. This one 90 to this one. Okay. Now, can I say this one to this one? No. It will over-constrain the sketch. Yeah, basically, this is not needed because when this corner, and this corner are all 90 degrees, this one has to be 90 degrees. There's no way you can move this dot and these two lines without destroying the 90-degree angles at these two corners here. So by nature of geometry, that is a rectangle. Okay. And that's what the perpendicular constraint does. I'll just show you one more example of it too. Hit escape to get out of it. Click away, left click. Now I should be able to right click on it and say delete. Right click and say delete. And finally right click and say delete. Very good. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight the whole thing and delete it. This is the last thing I wanted to show you. Is if I take a line here and, oh, let's do this. let's just take a line from here to here to here, and then here. Okay, so I've got kind of a goofy looking line, and I'm going to move it down just a touch. There, you notice how you can highlight the whole thing and then just grab a part of it and it'll all move. If I do the perpendicular constraint, which I just turned on, and I went from this line to this line, that made that a square 90-degree angle. Same thing with this one. I go to the small one, click on the larger one. They are now 90 degrees as well. I'm going to zoom out so you can see it. Okay. So that's what that did. Escape, highlight the whole thing and delete it. Wonderful. This one, smooth. It's kind of a new command, from what I understand, to Inventor. Autodesk Inventor. I keep calling it AutoCAD, and that's a mistake. It's Autodesk Inventor. But this is a relatively new command, kind of specialized and not really used much. But I tell you what, I bet somebody needed it really bad, so they built it into the program because it does a lot. Let me demonstrate. This smooth command, G2 condition, continuous G2 condition. Boy, that's specialized already. Let's say you have an arc right here. You draw yourself an arc. Oh, something like that. Okay? Then you put yourself an arc over here somewhere, and you kind of do that with it. Okay. We covered arcs in one of the last videos. And we also talked about splines. So now I'm going to draw myself a spline. I'm going to connect it to the end of this line right here. Notice the green dot, so I can click now. I'm going to go shoot out this way, kind of curve down, and then back and forth, work my way over to that arc right now. Yeah. And then when it turns green, I'll click on it, and to end drawing splines, I'll click on the little check mark. Okay. What this smooth command does, this smooth constraint, is notice how the spline and the arc, and I'll zoom in so you can see this. That's kind of an angle there, isn't it? It comes up here and it makes a sharp turn to the right. And same thing over here. So same thing here. We'll zoom in. This spline comes over to this arc, and it doesn't join smoothly. But if you want it to, you click on this smooth G2 constraint, you choose the arc, you choose the spline, and I'll zoom out. Look at that. It smoothed out the curve. Same thing down here. We'll choose the spline first this time. I don't think it matters what you do. Choose the arc, and it adjusted everything so that it is a smooth join. You probably won't use that much, but if you need it, it's there. So that's what that does. You may never use it in this class, but you may never use it, period. But I'll bet if there's an instance where you need it, you desperately need it, and they built it in. Okay. On to something you probably will use. Concentric constraint. Okay, a concentric constraint basically takes an arc or circle or another arc and joins their center marks, their center points, joins them together. Let's illustrate that. So go to the circle, click on circle, and we'll just draw a circle right there. And let's draw a larger circle right here. Okay? Hit escape to stop drawing circles. Now, I can still move these guys around. And if I wanted one to be inside the other, well, I just did it. You can do it that way. That's one way to do it. I'll delete that constraint, see if I can move it out. Yep, I can move it out. Here's the other way to do it. Click on this concentric constraint, and it won't let me touch the dots, but it'll let me touch the curves. That's because it allows for arcs too, and we'll do that in a second. So we'll click on that curve, we'll click on this curve, and there. It just joined them together at their center dots. Okay. Control Z to undo it. And I'm going to get rid of this one right here, the big one. And this time I'm going to draw an arc. Let's make it kind of a pretty good arc like that. Now, if you go to the concentric constraint and you touch the small circle and you touch the arc itself, there, it just joined them. It escaped like crazy. It just joined them at the center dots. Oh, I missed. There we go. And look at what happens when you move it around. Let's try it again. I can move it around. If I move the circle, looks like I can change the circle size. Looks like I can move the arc partly. If I move that dot right there, I can resize it, and the circle follows. So you can see how you can adjust these things. Same thing with that one. I can make that arc shorter. I can make it longer. If I constrain that center dot in the circle, I would only be able to just change the arc. But because it's not constrained here, I'm able to change it and move it. Okay, so that is the concentric constraint. All right, let's get rid of all that. Hit delete. What's next? We already talked about horizontal and vertical, and we talked about the orientation cube laying on its side, which it likes to do when you first start work. I always like to turn it upright so these things make sense. All right, so okay, we have symmetric. Okay, notice on the symmetric that it has a 1, 3, and a 2 on those lines. And what this does is, well, I think it's easier to show you what it does rather than trying to explain it. Let's go to line. We'll draw a line here. We'll draw a line up here. And I hit escape. We'll hit line again. We'll join it right here at this spot, and we'll lean it over to one side so it's closer to one side than the other. Okay, I'm hitting escape. What symmetric constraining does is it makes, I'll click it on, it makes the gap here the same as the gap here, or it makes the gap here the same as here. Basically, it moves something to make these all equal. But you need to do it in this order. You need to choose an outer one for your first click. You need to choose the other outer one for your second click. And then when you click the third one in the middle, there. They are now equidistant. Okay, I'm going to escape like crazy. If you were to move this dot a little bit, if you can, there we go. Notice that it widens that out. They are constrained. Now, if I move this dot a little bit, notice if I move it up and down, it changes the angle because it will not allow this to be different than this as far as an angle goes. I cannot just simply move it to the right because look, it even flips upside down. It's too far. You can only do that by moving this dot, if you can get on it, upwards. Oh, look at that. That's interesting. I am clicked on the dot with a particular line color. How about that? So I am doing, okay, you watch for that. That's interesting. So I'll click on that line, then click on that dot, if I can get to it. There we go. So yeah, that's what that command does, symmetry. Okay, we'll zoom out, get rid of it. You may not use that one very often, but it's one of those commands, once again, if you really need it to do that, it's there. Okay, this one here is equal. It makes things equal. For instance, let's draw a circle. And let's draw a bigger circle. And let's draw a much bigger circle. Okay? And I'm going to escape like crazy to get out of circle drawing. And I'm going to move this one over a little bit. This one over a little bit. And this one down here a little bit. Okay. Let's start with the smallest circle. I click on equal, and I choose the small circle, and I choose the large circle as my number 2 choice. What happens? How about that? It made the small one big. I'm going to click Control Z to undo. Alright, I'm going to escape like crazy. I'm going to resize this down a little bit, and this one down a little bit too. Because I want to show you, we'll click away, escape away, everything's neutral. Let's go equal. Let's choose the big one first this time. Let's choose the small one second. Hey, look at that. Seems to be a pattern. It seems to make them the bigger size. Okay, Control Z. Let's try these two. Yes, equal. We'll choose the smaller one. We'll choose the larger one. And how about that? Now let's go for 3. Oh, I'm clicking on it and nothing's happening. Well, let's hit escape. Let's choose equal again. We'll choose this circle and we'll choose this circle. There. Notice I had to do it a third. I had to actually escape out in order to get them to work. That puts 2 constraints on this one. Now let's zoom out a little. Note, I'm going to escape so you can see this. This constraint and that one on the right hand circle are together. This constraint and that one on the left are together. So basically I had to do 2 constraint commands to get this circle and this circle together, and this circle and this circle together. And they seem to default to the larger size. Good for you to know. Okay, go ahead and delete it. Okay, that almost takes care of everything except this one. This one is a fix. Fixes points and curves in position relative to the sketch coordinate system. So, if you move or rotate the sketch coordinate system, fixed curves or points move with it. Fixed geometry is shown in the fully constrained color. F1 for more help. How about that? Let's see what that does. Let's draw a line. And we'll just draw it right there. Let's throw a couple more in there just for grins. Escape to stop drawing lines. We'll hit the lock button and we'll choose this line right here. It now has a padlock. I'm going to hit escape. Let's see if we can monkey with it. Okay, so that slides it. This does not affect it in any way. Can I do something with it? No, look at that. I can't go up and down with it. Escape. Nope. How about if we side to side it? No, look at that. So I can't move the line up and down. I can't move the line side to side. I cannot spin it around. Okay, I'm just moving the constraint icon, but I'm on the line. I clicked on it and it won't budge. Can I resize it? Yes, I can resize it. That's about it. What about over here? Can I do something with that? I'll get those out of the way. Ah, yes. I can do that, but it stays pretty fixed. And that's why it's called fixed. If I fix this line down here, and this line up here, I hit escape to get out of everything. What if I move this? Look at that. They stay fixed. There you go. They are fixed. Okay, so that's what fix is. Okay, hit delete. And that pretty much concludes the constraint menu. Oh, well, almost concludes it. There's a couple of other things we should look at. Oh yeah, don't show me this again. We covered this, which is to show all the constraints. Did we cover this? Automatic dimensions and constraints. Let's see. If I do this, 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 and then I'm just getting into right there. What if I hit the automatic constraint button here? Auto dimension, curves, dimensions, constraints. 14 dimensions required. All right, we'll choose that one. We'll choose that one, that line, that line, that line, but we'll leave that one alone. I'm going to hit apply. Oh, look at that. It put all the dimensions on it. Well, that's cool. Okay, let's hit remove. Oh, that's cool too. Let's just do this one and hit apply. Nice. How about this one and hit apply? Very nice. How about these two and hit apply? There's my angle. Can I overwrite it? Hit escape. 60. Beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. So we'll go back to it. 11 required. So we'll hit that one and hit apply. What if we did from that dot to that dot? Perfect. What about from that dot to that dot? That's exactly what we want. Well, can't quite move it. I have to be out of it for it to move. Okay, speaking of remove, oh, it removes them all. Okay, so it allows dimensions and constraints. What if I just turned off the constraints and I just clicked on lines, like say that one and that one, and hit apply? Okay, it just gave me a bunch of dimensions. Remove. How about constraints? If I hit that one and I hit apply, didn't show me much. Dimensions only if I hit that one, and that one, and hit apply. That's very handy. I don't think it hurts anything if constraint turned on, but that is a wonderful command. So what if I did this? Went and highlighted the whole thing and hit apply. There you have it. That is one constrained mess. Okay, remove, done. Very cool. Okay, so that explains, oh, we missed one. Constraint setting. Oh, this one I would probably not use. I'll click on it and I'll show you. What this does is it allows you to choose which constraints you will do and which ones you don't want to do. Well, you want them all. I would want them all. Relax dragging. Yeah, lazy mode. So if I were to say like, if I wanted to get rid of selection for constraint inference, you can adjust the way this works, and I would just leave it alone. Cancel. So that pretty much covers all the constraints. Very powerful, very handy tools, and it's driving me nuts that these aren't constraints, so I'll take care of that now. There. That explains the constraints in drafting and sketching. Very good.